What's up, y'all? I don't know if you got the memo, but we already planning for summertime shy around here, and I've got the first event you need to add to your list. Moats Entertainment presents Out and Amplified Night of Queer Music. This unforgettable evening will feature 3 groundbreaking artists, including Vincent, Parson James, and John Duff. Plus, you'll see queer local DJs from right here in the city, including bodybuilding drag queen Miss Toto and house disco techno artist Icy Baby. Catch Out and Amplified Night of Queer Music at the Riviera Theater on Friday, June 20th. Doors open at 6 and the show starts at 7:30. You can get your tickets at moatsevents.live/tickets. Today on CityCast Chicago, we're talking about the Bears Stadium drama that just won't quit, what we've learned during 5 years of COVID-19, and we're asking, what would you put in your Chicago time capsule? It's Tuesday, March 18th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago is talking about. Joining me is executive producer Simone Alisea. Simone, welcome to the building. How was your St. Patty's Day weekend?
It was good. I mostly managed to avoid the crowds, and I found parking in both Wicker Park and Roscoe Village without any problems. So I was lucky, I think.
That's what's up. I did have to get up and navigate the red line to the blue so I can get up to Logan for the second of 4 pottery classes. This week went a lot better. I made a plate that ended up looking like a cannoli. I made a bowl, and I made my first of what I'm going to imagine is like a series of ashtrays. Then I walked, I think, from Logan all the way downtown, and then I wanted to get away from the crowd, so I just hopped on the Green Line real quick. So I did get to see the river while on the Green Line. And yeah, I didn't see it like it's like peat green or anything, but I saw what they was getting down. I saw a little Verde up in there. So I did have to like maneuver through some crowds to and from. But after that, I was pretty much locked in the house, and then laughed my ass off when it started snowing on Sunday, because I felt that was the perfect way for the city to be like, all right, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here. You got to go.
It's March in Chicago, and we're done.
Yeah, I don't know what you thought this was. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Most Tuesdays, I sit down with the producers to talk about some stories. Some are fun, some are a little deeper. Some kind of get us into the nitty gritty of things happening in Chicago. And I think that's the perfect way to describe this Bears story. They are coming off of what I can only describe as a fantastic opening of free agency, retooling on the offensive and defensive line. We got the NFL draft next month, and I'm thinking, oh my God, who we gonna get? Who we gonna get? But with all of that, like optimism about the Bears' future, this conversation and question keeps coming up of like, okay, so down the line, where the hell are the Bears going to be playing? Are they going to remain in their home at Soldier Field on the lake? Are they going to move out to Arlington Heights, where they've purchased over 300 acres of former racetrack land? Or are they going? Now the question is, could they possibly move to Bronzeville? Simone, where are we at in this stadium debacle?
We have been talking about this almost as long as we have been a podcast. This has been a debate that's going on. And the question about this comes because the Bears have a lease at Soldier Field that expires in 2033, I think.
Yes, the Bears is under lease till 2033.
Yes.
But they can get out of the lease as early as 2026 for a penalty.
Right. And they have, they've stated that Soldier Field is not adequate, right, for their needs. The seating is not adequate.
Smallest stadium in the NFL.
And of course, they would love a roof because winter be winter, right? The latest is that the developer of the site of the old Michael Reese Hospital in Bronzeville has sort of come out publicly to say, hey, we've got a stadium idea. This site had been floated for a long time as like a potential for a Bears move. Bears president Kevin Warren had previously said that the site was too narrow. He hasn't responded to this latest proposal, but Fairpoint Development came out, and with Jacoby, I know you're going to love this, they've got beautiful renderings of what What a stadium could look like.
I saw him, G. What new green space connecting it to the lakefront can look like what they would need for remediation, the hotels and amenities that would be built around it.
Mixed use buildings, etc.
You know, I'm a sucker for a good rendering, but when you get into the details, the amount of money they would potentially need from Illinois or the city for remediation, for public transit improvements and other things, it's beautiful, but it doesn't get us closer to a not publicly funded $1 billion stadium.
It is a little different from the Planet Soldier Field because the stadium itself would be privately financed, as I understand, to the tune of about $3.2 billion. But yes, as you said, there are sort of other elements which would probably have to happen with any redevelopment of the Michael Reese site, to be honest. Maybe not specifically. One thing that Fairpoint is looking at is like this big like pedestrian bridge, and like there's like a really big question mark on like how much that is going to cost in total, and like, is that exactly the thing that Chicago needs at that site? Who knows? I think arguments could be made. But as you point out, the big sticking point of redeveloping Soldier Field, which has been championed by Mayor Brandon Johnson and, by the Bears themselves to some degree, has really kind of stalled in Springfield because Pritzker and House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch have both kind of been like, nah, we've got bigger budget problems to solve.
There's no appetite to be subsidizing yet another stadium while there are still finances being paid off for the construction of the spaceship on top of Soldier Field.
Right, the last Soldier Field renovation.
I knew we were in for the long haul when we started this conversation years ago, but the ways in which the plan for the Bears to maybe start thinking about moving to Arlington Heights when they purchased the International Race Course a couple of years ago for $197 million. It kind of felt like when we were talking about that deal that, this feels like it's cut and dry. They'll have to figure out some property tax issues, some financial details with the township. But then we had that huge pivot where team president Kevin Warren, Mayor Brandon Johnson came out, gave a press conference, and that started to give people the thought of, okay, maybe them staying in Soldier Field is a possibility. Always felt like a negotiating tactic to me, but everyone seemed all in. The fact that hasn't moved forward. People at the Michael Reese site saying the only reason they debuted this plan is because they felt it was a necessary Hail Mary because they feel like the Bears have already repositioned themselves for a move towards Arlington Heights. And now you have the mayoral candidates in Arlington Heights, all three of them essentially saying, we want to continue the work of the current mayor, which is ultimately to bring the Bears here. Sure, on deals that work for all of us, but all of them feel very confident that making this a huge part of their campaign and making this a huge part of their next administration is going to likely pull the Bears from Soldier Field and the lakefront. And at this moment, I feel like that has always been the strongest likelihood. And now I feel even more confident.
But what I think is interesting, even if sort of the materially, as far as where the money is, that seems like it seems to be the way the Bears are going. The Bears have not committed to that option at all and have repeatedly not committed, publicly said we're still exploring our options, et cetera, et cetera. It's not like the Bears are out here publicly stumping for Arlington Heights. And the plan to build at the Arlington Racecourse after it was purchased was stalled because of property tax issues. The Bears got this big, property tax bill after they bought it, $9 million. And they were like, we don't want to pay that. They got a lower valuation.
They said, I got 1.5 for you, 1.7.
1.7. Yeah, they said they got a lower valuation, brought that payment down to 1.7. But the school districts in the area who are like, hey, we need property taxes to pay our bills.
$7 million.
Like, could you not, please? Like, could we get some of that money? And that was only kind of resolved just this fall, winter. They finally reached a deal so that for the Bears to pay, at least in the first few years, just $3.6 million. I think that is sort of telling for the types of negotiations, not to mix my sports metaphors here. The Bears are playing hardball here, right? They are, as you said, they don't like to spend money. They don't want to spend money. The state doesn't want to spend money, but Arlington Heights, maybe they're willing to spend money. I guess this next year will be really telling, right? If they, especially to decide if they're going to take the sort of radical move of like trying to get out of their lease at Soldier Field early after 2026, I think a lot could happen between now and then. Would you be sad if they moved to Arlington Heights?
Honestly, when we first started this conversation, I said no. But last season, I was able to go to like 2-3 games, and it was in walking distance. I walked to and from. What? Hell yeah, I'm gonna be sad. Now we on the up and up. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Lions talking about, oh my God, Chicago just got money coming out of nowhere. You got the division a little spooked, maybe. Like, yes, I would be mad. It's up the street, Simone. Man, all right, we gotta move on.
This episode is sponsored by Babbel. Are you holding back on foreign travel plans this year because you're afraid of the language gap? I'm not, because I have Babbel. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I'm learning Spanish on Babbel, getting ready for a trip to Mexico City. Babbel is the language learning app that gets you talking. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or at whatever pace you choose. Babbel's tips and tools are inspired by the real-life stuff you actually need when communicating. With a focus on conversation, you'll be ready to talk wherever you go. Babbel has given me great lessons on getting directions, ordering in a restaurant, and making plans. And of all the things I'm doing in Mexico City, I'm probably most excited about the soccer game we're going to. So I was excited to learn how to cheer from Babbel. That'll be me you'll hear yelling, Fuerza Tigres! Fuerza Tigres! With over 16 million subscriptions sold, Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting our listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Babbel.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
For the last couple of weeks, we have been talking about 4 years since this podcast started, but that always reminds us that it's been 5 years since the COVID-19 pandemic started. We're recording this episode on March 17th, and March 17th is always interesting for us because it is officially the day we launched 4 years ago. But then March 17th, 2020, 5 years ago, was the very last day I was able to spend in a classroom teaching my students in person because, a couple of days later, Governor Pritzker announced the stay-at-home order, and we all went in to official lockdown as the COVID-19 pandemic gripped the entire world. Simone, this seems like a very basic question, but I feel like when we were all locked in our homes, there was this uncertainty of when would things end. To say 5 years ago the pandemic started feels wild to me.
5 years ago, I was not even living in Chicago.
No.
I was still living in Seattle. And I moved here in February 2021. I moved here pre-vaccine, which I often emphasize to people when I explain when I moved. I think what's interesting to me is, for me, that really marked kind of a shift in feeling sort of like we were in the thick of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But thinking back to the summer of 2021 versus the summer of 2024. I remember us doing several episodes being like, oh, everybody's back outside. And then again in 2022, oh, okay, no, everybody's really back outside. No, in 2023, no, guys, we're really back outside. And then last summer, it was guys, the crowds are insane. I don't know what to tell you.
Nah, they're overwhelming. I think of the crowd over this past weekend because St. Patrick's Day was the last.
Right. It was the last big event
before things went into lockdown. And our very first episode was you outside talking to people both from the city, people who had come to the city for St. Patrick's Day. And there was this sense of not only pent up anxiety, this desire to be outside, but that you could still hear the fear in people's voices that to go outside was to take a risk. Even the people who were letting loose, they couldn't do it without acknowledging I've been trapped down for the last 6, 7, 8 months. I just need to be outside. It is what it is. That you could feel that sort of pent up aggression and anxiety on everybody.
I think the other thing for me that's changed a lot too is like, now I've become a permanent remote worker. I work from home
Yep.
permanently. And I gotta say, it's gonna take a lot to get me back into an office.
Oh,
I
without a
apologize to
doubt.
any future employers out there.
What's interesting is thinking about this over the weekend with how many crowds were out. I'm shocked. Like, I still see people wearing masks, but I'm shocked at how few masks I see out. Like, you don't hear anything around social distancing anymore. There's no conversation. And I think we've even gotten to the point where like people are now going back outside when they're like a little bit sick or like, not removing themselves from spaces as fast. And if we want to sort of blow up and talk about like what this administration is doing, like preventative healthcare, preventative measures, investing in like the CDC and things, none of those things are happening. And so it's almost like we've just, at least at that level, have just like, they're at the point where they're pretending we didn't just live through that.
It is wild. And I'm not somebody who is masking almost very rarely. I think pretty much only in airports these
Unless
days.
I'm in a doctor's office.
Yeah, in doctor's offices. That's kind of the other place. But I'm I'm going to crowded places. But there are certain things like the social distancing thing. Like, yes, when I'm in line at the grocery store, people are much closer to me than they used to be. And I don't appreciate it. Going out when you're a little bit sick. I am seeing that more and more, and it kind of drives me up a wall.
All the hand sanitizer, buildings is gone, the wipes.
My favorite thing, though, is when you see like where an old hand sanitizer thing used to be from 5 years ago when they installed it or whatever, but it's like empty or like.
It felt like we were all on the same page. It was like, you know what? Let's take our sick days. Let's do our best. If we got young kids to try our best not to just be, sending them to and from school every day when they are their absolute worst. Let's think a little bit more about building events that have social distance in mind. Let's think about being more accessible, thinking about people with like who have compromised immune systems, who get sick more easily, who have long-term illnesses. It just felt like it forced us to think about each other a little bit more, be more considerate. And it just feels like we have just completely dropped most of those habits.
I think sort of in the broad sense. Yeah. I mean, certainly I have friends and there are people out there who are, still fighting the good fight. And we appreciate you.
I think now I'm at the point where I feel like I'm mourning the things I thought we were going to do better, the ways that, like you said, broadly we were going to improve. But now we're in a space where it feels like people have vaccine fatigue. And it feels like that entire era has almost pushed people further away from the healthcare industry, despite the fact.
Well, and because like there, I think the other thing too is like, right, there were all these stories about, particularly in Chicago, about these like testing and like vaccine sites that were kind of operating with like little to no oversight. Yeah.
People got real scammy.
No real kind of understanding of where they come from or who these companies are and how they're making their money. And like, but that's the other wild thing you see when you're driving around Chicago is like, you'll see one of those old testing sites that like still has the sign up and it's like an old drive-through testing site. And it looks like a ruin. Like you look like you're in like a horror film.
For some people, even again, also reminds them of like closed down grocery stores and, essential workers being beaten all the way down and unemployment and long lines to get like fresh food. Like, so the amount of death, like what am I saying? Like the amount of people we lost. And sometimes it's easier to just like put them all together and be like, all right, we survived that. On to the next. We saw this story a while back about St. Viator, an elementary school in Old Irving Park, pulling out a Y2K time capsule that was made in 2000. 2000. Simone, tell me more about this time capsule.
It was very cute. We'll put a link in the show notes because it was just a delightful little story. So some of the things that they pulled out, fourth graders had made a cassette tape of their favorite songs. There was a crumpled Backstreet Boys poster. And there were various like little school projects that, sort of specific stuff or stuff that was specific to the school. There was also like a bag of quarters, and then like they taped it to a piece of paper that said the last of the 1900 quarters, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah, it was very, very cute. You should take a look. But it did get us sort of thinking, like, if we had to make a time capsule for Chicago in 2025 that would be opened in 2050, what would you put into it?
I got a Benny the Bull Hebrew Brantley bobblehead. Only reason I would put one of them in is because I now have two. I broke and re-glued the first one, and so I put that one in there. That's one thing for sure.
I think I would probably try to find a copy of the latest Reader.
Okay.
Because I think it's good to have a thing that has a date on it, so you know what people were talking about and reading on that date. So yeah, or any variation of like the newspaper from that day, I think is what I would my first thought.
I have a canister with like different confetti in it. Some of it is from the Chicago Sky Championship game a couple of years ago in the WNBA Finals. I was in the building for that game and took a little bit of it and kept it. So I put that in there because who knows, in 25 years, who knows if we will have won another championship in any sport. And so some of the remnants from the last one.
Interesting. Is there anything you would pick that you think represents 2025 specifically?
I would put in, I don't know if they have a printed out version of like the Metra and the CTA train and bus schedules.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I love that.
Put that in there.
That's good. I really like that. One I was thinking that's not from 2025, but from the years that we've been a podcast, is one of the Chicago cans.
You are funny as hell for that one. You bugging.
I think that would be so funny. For people who don't remember, this was a marketing effort by the city a few years ago, I think back in 2021, where then Mayor Lori Lightfoot announced that they were going to pay these artists to design cans of water, regular Chicago tap water, and they were going to they weren't selling them, they were giving them away as under the name Chicago water, Chicago. And it was very funny and silly.
I'd put together a mixtape that got like some local Chicago artists, so like Raven Lenae, Cara Jackson, Kai Ali, Achilles, Asha Omega, Al Scorch, Mick Jenkins. So there are a few. I definitely put a mixtape together. That's the interesting. What would you do? A mixtape, a mix CD? Would you just find like a little iPod? Like would
a little thumb drive? Yeah. How would you put the music?
I'd probably go USB. I feel like USB is the thing that will at least be the easiest thing for people to maybe access. I mean, but USB-A to USB-C.
I would have put my lightning cord charger since they're being phased out and they no longer will work.
Yeah, that's a good.
The tech. And like that's like the cassette tape that was in the schools. Like, I'm sure there are kids at the elementary school who are like, "What on earth is this?
What even is this?"
And so who knows?
But I feel like a USB drive, because at the least, I feel like libraries wouldn't have completely erased all of those ports yet.
In 25 years? I don't know, man.
You could maybe find a record player, a cassette player, a CD player.
Actually, you might be better off just putting it down on vinyl.
Big facts. People gonna have that back for sure. So some form of a playlist.
A
a little Joe on there too. And just put that together and get that to people. Ooh, this really got me thinking now.
I think you got to get some sneakers in there.
A Jules sale paper. Because, I would love to see a Jules sales paper from 25 years ago.
Yes.
Like, what the hell was bananas in
What much you eggs cost?
2000?
What did eggs cost?
1999. Yeah, that would be great. A Jules sale paper. Mm-hmm. We definitely got to print out, like, the Chicago Readers, Best of Chicago, Southside's, Best of the Southside, just to see what it was 25 years prior.
Oh, I would find a piece of concrete or something, like a little piece from the Red Line construction.
I like that. I would drop as updated or as accurate of a neighborhood map as you can get with all the different names, just to see which names are still there, which names are irrelevant. I feel like that is probably better done on like a 50 or 100 year scale, but even still.
I mean, more what you want is like a map with like demographics. Like
Ooh.
that, I think, could really change a lot in 25 years.
Basically give people that series of the 2025 Chicago maps all laid on top of each other.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we want to hear from y'all. Our list of 1,000 things we love about Chicago comes out next week. Leave us a voicemail
Oh, a
telling us.
Lollapalooza lineup.
That would be fire. That would be fire.
Like a lineup for the festivals.
I'd love to just see like just a list of all of the summer festival lineups from this summer. Who played at Wickerfest, at Jeff Fest, at Jazz Fest, just all Ravinia.
Next
all
time
these
we'll
things.
do 1,000 artists who played at Chicago Summer Festival.
I like that. I like that. If you want to add something to our time capsule, let us know. But also remember, our list of 1,000 things we love about Chicago comes out bright and early next week. So leave us a voicemail telling us something you love about Chicago, and we might feature it on the podcast. Call us at 773-780-0246. Leave your name, your neighborhood, and something you love about Chicago. Do me one favor before you turn this podcast off or you let it just gingerly skip to the next one. Join me in thanking our executive producer, Simone Alisea.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Please bookmark our website, chicago.citycast.fm. There you can catch up on old podcast episodes. Subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago. Check out our neighborhood and walking guides. And if you got it like that, consider becoming a member of CityCast Chicago. You'll get ad-free listening, meaning all of those suggested podcasts that be up in your feed, you'll get rid of them immediately. We got a members hangout coming in the next couple of months, so you know you want to be signed up for that. And we got so many more perks. Please go to chicago.citycast.fm now. One more thing. Some good news. Tomorrow, I'm going to stop by an author's talk featuring Dr. Eve L. Ewing and Jesse Hagopian in conversation about their newest books, Original Sins and Teach Truth. I'll drop a link in the show notes for tickets, the address. You can get all the information. Hopefully, I'll see you there. As always, I appreciate you for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace. One last thing. Some good.
That's the blooper, Michelle.